My 20s threw everything at me at once. I was bouncing between retail jobs, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I went back to college, navigated relationships, tried to balance work and life at the same time. It was messy, it was chaotic, and gaming became something different than it had before. In my teens, games taught me how to feel emotions, but in my 20s, games became an anchor, a way to stay grounded when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. The games that stuck with me during this decade demanded something from me. They pulled me in and wouldn't let me go, and even when I had 100 other things I should have been doing. Looking back now, I realized they were preparing me for something I didn't see coming. I wouldn't understand that until 2014. This is 2005 to 2014, 10 years, 10 games, the decade I became an adult. I always loved mythology, and I've been playing brutal games like Mortal Kombat since I was a kid, so God of War should have been right in my wheelhouse. But this was different. This wasn't just mythology or violence, this was rage given form. Kratos wasn't a hero, he was a monster seeking revenge, and the game never pretended otherwise. The QT finishes made boss fights feel cinematic before quick-time events became overused. Here, they felt revolutionary. Beneath all that brutality was genuine emotion. The reveal of Kratos' past, his family, what he had done, that's what hit different. The game understood that rage often comes from pain, from loss, from guilt you can't escape. God of War got me through my retail years. After a full shift of dealing with everything customer service throws at you, coming home to Kratos gave me an outlet. Sometimes you need a safe place to process frustration, and sometimes you need a story that tells you anger comes from somewhere real. I started working at Game Crazy in 2006, right around Kingdom Hearts 2's launch. Perfect timing. I booted it up expecting to play Sora. For hours I wandered Twilight Town as a kid. I didn't know, completely confused. I thought he was the new protagonist. It wasn't until the twist, that I'd been living through the aftermath of Chain of Memories, that everything clicked. The combat was faster, reaction commands turned boss fights into spectacles, drive forms made you feel powerful without tipping into God mode, and the worlds, Agrabah, Halloween Town, Tron, were fun to exist in. But what really stuck with me was the game's obsession with connection. Roxas trying to understand who he was, Sora searching for his friends, and then there was Axel. Got it memorized? Such a simple line that landed. Axel sacrificing everything for Roxas. Even when Roxas didn't remember him, the loyalty hit different. It was teaching me something about friendship I hadn't even considered. Sometimes caring about friends means letting them go. Sometimes it means being there even when they don't remember why you matter. By the end, when Sora and Riku finally reunited with Kairi, I felt that relief. The sense of coming home. Sanctuary, playing all over. The song is still on my playlist. Working at Game Crazy, I'd recommend this to customers as Disney meets Final Fantasy. But really, it was a game about holding onto connections that matter, even when everything gets complicated, a lesson I'd need more than I knew. I was deep into my Game Crazy years by 2007. Every Tuesday, I'd help unbox new releases, and BioShock was the one everyone was asking about. Not the usual crowd looking for Madden or Halo, but people who wanted something atmospheric. We had a demo station where I could actually play games with customers, show them what made each title special. With BioShock, I'd load up Rapture and watch their faces change. That underwater city, that Art Deco architecture, the splicers lurking in the shadows, the big daddies rushing at you out of nowhere. But what really got me was the big daddies and the little sisters and their dynamic. These massive, drill-wielding monsters would absolutely destroy you, unless you left their little sisters alone. They were protectors. Violent, terrifying protectors, but protectors nonetheless. And you had to choose. Harvest the little sisters for power, or save them and struggle through with less. There was a moment late in the game where everything you thought you understood gets flipped. I won't spoil it, but I stood up and yelled, "What?" at 2 a.m. The game was about choice and control, or the illusion of it, about being manipulated through what you think you're making your own decisions, about the weight of choosing between what's easy and what's right. Going back to work the next day, showing customers that demo, I couldn't stop thinking about those big daddies, monsters who were also guardians. Sometimes the scariest thing you can be is the person standing between someone vulnerable and the rest of the world. By 2008, I'd play every Grand Theft Auto game. GTA 4 felt like a real upgrade. New console generations, better graphics, more refined. But this wasn't the cartoonish violence of Vice City or San Andreas. This was heavy. It was about an immigrant trying to escape his past, believing in his cousin Roman's promise of the American dream, but Roman was lying about his success, his wealth, everything. Yet despite all the lies, Roman was family, the only family Nico had. The game kept forcing impossible choices: save one person, lose another, make money, lose respect, seek revenge, lose your soul. Liberty City felt alive, but it felt cold, unforgiving. The ending I chose led to loss I didn't see coming. Someone who represented hope, who still believed things could get better, gone because of my decision. I sat there during the aftermath just feeling the weight of it. This was my last year at Game Crazy. The company had filed for bankruptcy the year before, and we could feel it dying. Watching my coworkers with kids wondering what came next. I got out before the final collapse in 2010, but I could see it coming. Between Nico's story and watching Game Crazy struggle, I was learning something crucial. You can't protect everyone. You can't save every situation. Sometimes you make the best choice you can with the information you have, but you lose things that matter. So I've played every Assassin's Creed ever made. The first one was clunky, repetitive. Assassin's Creed 2 fixed all of that. Ezio Auditore is my favorite assassin across the entire franchise. He was charming, funny, and cool. But what really got to me was his transformation. The game takes you through parts of his life, from a carefree young man to someone carrying the weight of the entire Brotherhood. The gameplay refinement was massive. Renaissance Italy was the perfect setting, exploring Florence, Venice, Rome, with all incredible detail. It was amazing to look at. But what stuck with me was watching Ezio learn to be responsible for others, building the Brotherhood, teaching, guiding, turning into someone who thought only about himself into someone who led a cause bigger than his own. Watching Ezio grow from impulsive to thoughtful, from selfish to selfless, it was teaching me something I didn't know I needed. That was real growth isn't just about getting older, it's about becoming responsible for more than just yourself. Of the classic Assassin's Creed styles, Assassin's Creed 2 is still my favorite. Not just for the gameplay, but for showing me the maturity isn't just about age, it's about who depends on you. I lost myself in the Mojave for more hours than I should admit. Fallout New Vegas was different from Fallout 3. The Capital Wasteland was about survival. The Mojave was about choosing sides, NCR, Legion, House, or yourself. In previous games, I always picked the clear factions before, the obvious good guys or the interesting bad guys. They had structure, philosophy, a clear path. This time I went independent Vegas, not because I believed in it, but because I never tried it. It was a wild card option, literally, with a robot named Yes Man who agreed to everything. It felt chaotic, unpredictable, and different for me. What surprised me was how uncomfortable it made me. I was used to following the faction quest lines, knowing where I stood, but the independent meant making every decision without a playbook. No faction philosophy to fall back on, just me deciding the fate of the Mojave with no one to blame if it went wrong. Everything in my life at the time had structure, work schedules, responsibilities, and routines. New Vegas became the place where I could choose chaos, where I could try something just because I had never done it before. Looking back, maybe that's what I needed to learn. That sometimes you just need to step outside of your obvious choices, try the path you've never taken, even if you're not sure where it leads, even if it's uncomfortable. Within a few years, I'd make the most unexpected choice of my life, but I didn't know that yet. Comic book games were finally great. Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, the voices from the animated series, now in the game that actually felt like being Batman. The combat was fluid, the stealth was tense, open world Gotham was everything I wanted. 2011 was insane for games. Skyrim was everywhere, Portal 2 had blown minds earlier that year, Dark Souls was punishing players across the world, but I was on the rooftops of Arkham City. What a wild time. What got me was the Predator sequences, hanging from gargoyles, picking off enemies one by one, watching them panic as their numbers dwindled. That was hilarious. It wasn't about power, it was about patience. Waiting for the perfect moment, every room was a puzzle with multiple solutions. The story goes places I didn't expect. The relationship between Batman and Joker evolves into something deeper than just a hero versus villain vibe. But by the end, I sat through the entire credits. Not for a post-credit scene, but just to process what I just witnessed. Something from my childhood, Batman the Animated Series and comics, had finally grown up with me. Arkham City proved that heroes we loved as kids could tell adult stories also. That our childhood wasn't something just to leave behind, but something to carry forward and see with new eyes. But while Batman taught me patience and planning, the next game would teach me something harder, how to truly understand people. Persona 4 Golden flipped the RPG script. This wasn't about just saving the world. It was actually about connecting with people. Social Leaks turned the game into something more than just dungeon crawling. It was about building relationships, spending time with characters, learning their stories. That became just as important as the main plot. The investigation team wasn't just a party of heroes, but they were just teenagers dealing with real problems, identity crisis, family pressures, self-doubt. The game explored differences between who people pretended to be and who they really are, the mask we all wear. What hit me was how the game rewarded patience. You couldn't rush Social Links. You had to show up, listen, be present. Some days you would make progress, some days you wouldn't. But consistency mattered more than grand gestures. Every character was dealing with something they couldn't say out loud. The game taught me to pay attention to what people don't say. To recognize that everyone's fighting battles you just can't see. Looking back, maybe I was practicing something, learning that relationships take time, attention, and genuine interest in understanding people beyond their surface. I just had no idea how much I needed those lessons, but life always has a way of preparing you for what's coming, even when you don't know when it's coming. Here we are, another Assassin's Creed. Pirates plus Assassin's Creed. And after AC3, I needed this. While I respect American history, but it's never really captured my imagination, Assassin's Creed 3 turned my favorite franchise into something that felt more like homework rather than adventure. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was the opposite. This is pure fantasy fulfillment. The pirate life I dreamed about as a kid was now wrapped into Assassin's Creed lore. And not just surface level piracy, but the deeper history of how the Assassin-Templar conflict evolved and how these secret societies shaped the world behind the scenes. Edward Kenway wasn't noble like Ezio. He was selfish, greedy, chasing gold while everyone around him fought for ideals. But watching him slowly realize that some things matter more than treasure, that hit differently. The journey from selfishness to sacrifice, from running away to standing for something that mattered. The naval combat did have a learning curve, but once it clicked, it was perfect. Sailing the seas, you're cruising in shanties, stopping at islands for treasure. It had that Wind Waker sense of exploration and freedom. Standing at the wheel of the Jack Draw, sunsetting of the Caribbean, I felt something I hadn't had in a while. Pure adventure. No obligations, no structure, just the horizon. I didn't know it then, but this was just one of my last games I could just disappear for pure escapism. Because within a year, adventure would mean something completely different. So this one might be a surprise based on the list. I've been a South Park fan since the show started. When Obsidian announced a South Park RPG, I was all in. The Stick of Truth felt like playing an episode. The humor was perfect, the RPG mechanics worked. It was absurd and offensive and hilarious in all the right ways. The game's combat system, using everyday objects as weapons, special moves that were deliberately inappropriate, it all worked. This wasn't trying to be a serious RPG. It was South Park making fun of RPGs while also being a genuinely good one. The tutorial alone told me Obsidian understood the assignment. Every quest was ridiculous. Every character was exactly as awful as they should be. After years of games asking me to save the world, here was one asking me to be a kid playing pretend in the most messed up town in America. This was kind of a breather year, or so I thought. After years of heavy games about choice, consequence, responsibility, and sacrifice, I needed something that just made me laugh. South Park delivered. But 2014 wasn't actually a breather at all. While I was laughing at South Park's chaos, 2 girls were about to enter my life. These 2 girls would become my daughters. Not by blood, but by choice. They needed stability, guidance, and someone who showed up every day, no matter what. Then suddenly, all those lessons about patience, responsibility, understanding what people don't say out loud, they weren't abstract anymore. They were about homework help, difficult conversations, and learning to be an adult these kids needed me to be. So looking back at this decade, I can see it clearly now. These games weren't just demanding my time, they were teaching me. My 20s were chaos. Career changes, relationships, dead-end jobs. I didn't have time to waste. But these games pulled me in anyway. They weren't passive entertainment, they were my training grounds. In my teens, games taught me how to feel emotions. In my 20s, games taught me about consequence, responsibility, and understanding others. They prepared me for a role I didn't even know was coming. God of War taught me that anger comes from pain. Kingdom Hearts taught me about loyalty that doesn't quit. GTA 4 showed me that every choice carries weight. Persona 4 taught me to see past the mask people wear every day. New Vegas taught me to try paths I've never taken. Black Flag showed me that even selfish people can learn to sacrifice. And by the end of 2014, my life had changed completely. I had 2 daughters looking to me for answers, and that made me even more important to get right. The games I had played weren't just escapes, they had turned into lessons. The patience I learned, the understanding of hidden struggles, the weight of choices, I needed all of it. These 10 games unexpectedly prepared me to become someone I never expected to be. Dad, not perfect, not always sure what I was doing, but present, consistent, trying. The games that defined my 30s would test everything I've learned about being the person others depend on, about guiding, about staying true to yourself while helping others find themselves. But that's a story for another time. If you've made it this far, thank you. This is part 3 of 4. Links to my childhood and my teenage years are in the description. The finale, my 30s, is coming soon. Subscribe if you want to see how the story ends. Comment with the game that defined your 20s. I'll see you in the final chapter.